I have my two sons in London, and one of them has three sons,
Okay.
and the oldest one of these, he's having a concert on Wednesday evening, so we want to stay for that.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Greetings, everyone. This is the Swedish America Heritage Online video production. Today is part of our journey to Sweden, which we just arrived this afternoon. We have an opportunity to speak to one of our earliest Swedish registered users. His name is Ulf Alpsten. Thank you very much for being with us,
Well,
Ulf.
That's so nice to see you here.
Right, it's nice to meet you in person too. Ulf, I've often wondered. I've heard a few things about your background. I think you mentioned you work in the information technology area, and also that you had a great pastime of sailing. I've seen pictures of you both. But I wonder if you could tell me about your background in information technology. How did you get started? What schools did you go to, and how did that tie in with genealogy? Because I know you're a fan of genealogy.
Okay, well, if we start with the IT side, then
Okay.
I went to the Royal Institute of Technology here in Stockholm, which is well, where you get a master's in technology. And one of the courses there was in programming.
Okay.
But this was, I was finished that education 1967. And at that time, IT was booming. It was not called IT at that time, but
No, it's called automation.
yeah, ADB and these kind of things. Yeah, and so I thought, well, what do I do? And I went to some place to get some help with finding a job, and I got a suggestion for two different ones, and I was interviewed, and I got both of them, and I chose the IBM one.
Okay, so you went to work with
IBM.
International Business Machines.
Yeah.
Very large company across the world.
Yeah. Well, they have been up and down and up and
Yeah.
down. Yeah. Very, very nice company to work with.
What type of work did you do with IBM?
Well, at first I was actually programming, and after 9 months I was sent to the US to work with programming in Poughkeepsie,
Okay.
New York. And I was there for a year and a half. Then went back and became project leader for some things. And after a year, then I was a manager, and then, well, then it went on with that side.
Okay.
So, but I've programmed the operating system part.
So you were a systems guy.
So I know what a computer is.
Yeah.
And how it works. So it's, but then I've been working with people. I've been leader and manager for most of my life.
Okay.
I worked 36 years with IBM.
36 years in IBM. Great.
Yeah.
That's a long career with them.
Yeah. So I quit when I was 60, and I had a good program, good package to at that time, and then I started to do my other things, like finding out my background and what was especially interesting was that my father died when I was 2.
Oh, I see.
So I hadn't had so much background from that side. So that was.
So you really became interested in genealogy.
Yeah.
After you retired.
Yeah.
And you wanted to learn more about your dad's family.
Right.
Okay.
At least that's where I started, and then the time that I found this link to Swedes in Texas was my grandfather's brother had emigrated from Småland,
Hmm.
1879.
Okay.
Uh,
Hey, and which grandfather was this?
this was my father's grandfather,
Okay.
father's father,
Oh,
and his brother, his oldest brother actually. Uh, and it turned out in the Swedish church books that they had a very tough time.
mm,
They had 4 kids dying young, probably because they hadn't the real means to live a good life.
yeah.
So what I understand, he took this package of there was a Swedish guy who paid for the trip for working a year in
Uh-huh.
his farm in Texas. So I think it was that program. But I also then saw that he was working in the railway business and so on, with some building things. So that was marvelous to see this information from the Swedes in Texas.
What part of Sweden did they live in before they immigrated?
Well, it was in Småland, the
Right? The
Jönköping
province of Sweden. Around
side.
Jönköping?
Yeah, close to Jönköping. Uh, Something called Barkaryd.
Sure. Barker is a very famous source for a lot of Swedes coming to Texas.
Mhm. And
Were you
Yeah.
born in in Småland province?
no, my father was,
Okay.
but he married my mother, who was from closer here from to Stockholm,
Okay.
Sörmland, and so they settled here in Stockholm actually.
So your early years were here in the big city.
Yeah, right. So I've been living in Stockholm when I have not been in Poughkeepsie, New York, and also I had a couple of years in London.
All right. Couple of years. Wow.
Yeah,
With IBM
with IBM, yes.
on a special project or?
Well, I was there to I started to develop the business within IBM as a management consultancy.
Okay.
So during that time, it was a global uh, project to build this up. And I was doing that for the Nordic side.
Okay.
So that was fun.
Now that's your a little bit of a genealogy side and a little bit of your history, where you came from and what you worked. But I understand you have this big passion in sailboating too.
Yeah,
How did
sure.
that come about?
Well, that's a long story, but it's quite a nice one. That when I grew up, I had a bigger brother. He was a year and a half older than I, and we were quite close. And I think it was when I was around 17, we saw this newspaper backside with half a page of sailing boat out in the archipelago, and it was an article about this, and said, okay, we have to buy one. And he had another friend, and we 3 together bought a boat.
Yeah.
And first time we were out, we had another friend with us who had been sailing before. We 3 hadn't before.
Wow.
So, but we also took some books to learn, of course. And
What size of boat was this?
this was a 9-meter
9 meter. Okay.
sailing boat.
But you didn't have any experience when you
No,
bought the boat.
we just realized this is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we had this boat for a number of years and sold it when the well when we married, and then I bought a new one when my kids were around 5 years old.
So you've really been boating your entire life then, huh?
Yeah, sort of. Well, say something. 30 years of my 60.
Okay.
Well, what is it? It's 72. 72 now.
You say it softly, like we're getting old.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not feeling old.
No, sure, we never feel old. Uh, but that's a long time to be interested in sailing, and
Yeah,
that's kind of.
yeah.
I'm also a little amazed by it too because I'm thinking about the short, warm summers you have.
Yeah. Mhm.
It seems like some of your sailing may be in cold weather too.
No, well, you sail here in summertime, and we have a marvelous archipelago with a lot of islands, a lot of very nice boating areas.
Okay,
So that's why I guess quite a few here in the Stockholm area have boats
Okay.
and are out.
so it's a pretty popular
Yeah,
item for
yeah, it
because
is.
when I think of sailing too, I think about off the coast of San Diego or something,
Yeah,
in the warm Pacific Oceans,
yeah,
or even some of the larger lakes.
yeah, but this is sailing with open, very open sea.
Yeah.
Here it's sailing with a lot of islands, and you can stop at any island and have your barbecue and have a nice time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is
So
it possible that maybe some of your ancestors were sailors? Have you ever studied that?
I haven't found any signs of that.
You
No,
haven't found any signs of that.
no.
That's interesting.
No, well, actually, there was a. That's actually there was one. Uh, one guy who came from Finland, married here in Sweden, just south of Stockholm, and he was a skipper. And he had a boat. Yeah, so that's actually I was wrong there.
Okay.
There is some
I find that
ancestor.
I find that I'm thinking of a lot of Swedes over the years who find it a very exciting way to maybe leave the family farm or leave the area that's really tough at times to go see the world.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, there were many people who did that to come out from Sweden and travel to Brasilia or anywhere.
And so you've actually then lived though in Sweden. You're in Stockholm your entire life.
Yeah, except for London and
Yeah, except for those
Poughkeepsie.
few job places. Yeah, you like that name Poughkeepsie, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. But New York, IBM was based there.
yeah. That's one of their base camps. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're just wondering what is it like to live in Stockholm for so long. I can't really imagine that. I'm not a big city person, much less a big city foreign person, or even a big city in my own homeland as well, being Sweden. What's it like to live here?
Well, Stockholm is not a really big.
It's not really big.
Well, it's 1.5 million people
That's pretty
in
good size.
in the area,
Yeah,
and well, it's a very nice area, I would say, and I I grew up with the Swedish language, and even if I can communicate in English, it's
well, you sure
it's of course
communicate better
that's
than
it.
I can communicate in Swedish. I think you do an excellent job.
But having your family around and so on, I think it's good.
Yeah.
But nowadays we are traveling a lot, I would say. Also.
Traveling by car, by
No,
air.
no. Well, one of my other interests is old cultures.
Old cultures, okay.
So For example, we came home about a month ago from Iran,
Oh, wow.
where
They let Swedes into Iran?
yeah, mhm. Yeah, and
I'm
it
just
was a
kidding.
very nice time. We were surprised that people were so happy and well, very friendly to foreigners.
Are they?
Yeah, and they wanted to take their selfie with us.
Oh,
and
really?
These kind of things.
Yeah.
Marvelous.
So what areas of Iran did you visit? I mean,
Well, we visited where there are these old things like Persepolis, which is where the Persians, 500 before Christ,
okay.
had their new city set up. And well, we went around to these different nice places.
Was this part of a tour group or?
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
group. Yeah, and we had an archaeologist. What's the name?
Archaeological?
Archaeologist as the leader of.
Okay, somebody experienced
Yeah.
in that particular area.
So we could get the good information.
That's neat.
Yeah, and we are doing a lot of these trips to these old places.
Are you documenting these efforts?
Well, actually, we're making a photo book
Great,
for each trip.
great.
So we really, in 10 or 20 years, we will be able to sit there in the room to look at our old experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important too to make sure something like that's available for your descendants,
Yeah,
for
Yeah.
your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, and in the future, because that's something that they'll really enjoy looking at someday.
Mhm.
Well, I want to thank you very much for spending this time with me.
Well, that's very nice to meet
I'm going
you.
to try to gather more information about our registered users like this on this trip.
Very good.
Thank
And
you
I
very
hope
much.
you will have a good time here.
Well, thank you very much. We'll try.